Mm. Can you hear me, Carrie?
What's that?
Can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you not hear me?
Strange. Usually people can't hear me and I have to call in. Hello. How are you?
I'm good. Can you hear me?
Okay, so I can't hear you. Maybe it's me. Carrie, can you hear her?
I can hear Valerie.
Oh, okay. It's
That's a
usually
good
me, so
thing.
I'm glad it's not me this time.
I think I'll just get off and call in
Okay.
or see if there's something I can do.
Valerie, how's it going?
Good.
It's
How are
Friday.
you?
It's Friday, right?
It's Friday, thank goodness. You doing good?
Yeah, pretty good.
Good.
There was some internet issues here at the NCJC this morning. I was like, really? I
Yeah,
come here to make sure that I don't have problems with the internet when I'm
we
hosting a
we
meeting.
we've had some problems this week, more than usual, so I don't know
Mhm.
what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. I called the help desk and I started to go into this long explanation. He's like, it's a system-wide problem. You don't need to say all that.
That's why I don't even bother calling. I'm like, my computer's not working. I'll dust my office.
It'll be up and rolling in a bit. How's Enterprise Justice going?
It's terrible. And I'll say that we're not recording yet, are
Oh,
we?
we are. No,
Oh.
okay, we're not recording yet, but we are live streaming. But there was an issue. So yes,
Yep,
thank you.
that's all I'll say. It's not good.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
there are some benefits, but
It's
we
always going to be a bumpy road to
yes,
start.
for
And
sure.
now you guys aren't even going to be we have a new group going on Monday.
Yeah, I saw that email and it just made my stomach drop a little bit. I feel for them.
Hey, Cheryl.
You're on the other side. Hey, Cheryl.
Right.
I always have to, things are in different spots with WebEx than they are in Zoom. It takes me a minute. Yeah.
I
Hi,
know.
how's everybody?
Hey, I know. I wish we were all in person today too, Cheryl.
No.
That would be nice, but we'll get there next time, I guess.
I was looking forward to seeing everybody. Yeah.
That's nice.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Morning.
How are things going over there, Judge Courtney?
So there's not enough Xanax in the world right now for New Hanover and Pender County.
I understand. Oh, and we're live streaming. Before you say anything more.
Right.
But yeah,
It's going to be fine.
okay.
It's just that nobody believes it today, but it's going to be.
I've been repeating that to myself every hour, just about multiple things. You name it, keeps changing.
So I went to Johnston and spent the day in court, in DSS court in Johnston with Joy Jones on Wednesday. And I'm absolutely convinced that everything's going to be okay.
I am.
I need to take my clerk's computer away from her for a few days so that she can't email, but I'm kidding. They're the clerk's offices are the ones that are really feeling the brunt of this. We've as judges, we've got the easiest job in this, I think. And, so we're just trying to extend as much grace as we can.
Yeah. It's a lot. We've been trying to pair people up to talk to other people who kind of solve some of the problems that other mediators are running into, and that helps.
I think it does. Cheryl, I was in your building yesterday.
I know. I'm sorry I didn't see you. I went from one class to another, but I know you were coming in after I was here. We've had a lot of people in this building this week. I hope you didn't get any of the sickness. There was quite a few people had some kind of stomach bug that ran through the building.
So, same thing in Johnston, except it was last week in Johnston and not this week. Everybody seemed to be better. And I had 10 magistrates online, yesterday,
Yeah,
out of
Yeah.
the class.
yeah. And we'd had earlier in the week, there's a big group of new Superior Court judges, and quite a few of them had the same illness. So I hope you don't catch it.
I'm good today. We'll see.
Good. Good.
Stephanie or Carrie, are there others that we're expecting?
Yes, Rick just text or emailed and said he needs the link again, so I can send that on to him.
Okay.
And I know Judge Cabe is planning on attending. I guess she and Judge Walzek both might be a little bit late because of cases that they're hearing.
Yeah, my day today is signing my name all day. Everybody's turned in their last minute legacy stuff. For example, the public defender's office dropped about 200 fee applications on my desk yesterday.
Oh my
Gosh.
gosh.
One law office dropped about 50 today. So writer's cramp all day for those of us who are left-handed and never learned to write correctly.
That's correct. That's correct. My aunt was of the era where she was left-handed and her mother tied her hand behind her back, made her write right-handed.
I can
Same
do a lot
with
of things
my mom.
right-handed, but I can't write with either hand.
Would you say, Kristen?
I said same thing with my mom. The nuns in Catholic school would slap her hand. She was supposed to be left-handed, but I'm left-handed and nobody did that to me, so I'm glad.
Yeah.
Are you a lefty too?
Me too.
Oh, that's unusual. I'm right-handed, but I write I hook. Like my mom is lefty and she was hook-handed, and apparently it's a wiring in your brain. And
Yes,
my mom,
Carrie,
yeah, go ahead.
only 10%. I worked for a neuropsychologist once, and he said only 10% of lefties don't write with a hook, and only 10% of righties do write with a hook.
So I understand the smear on your palm.
Well, I wonder if the next generation. will
I
even
got
write.
smeared today.
I don't think this next generation will be right or left-handed. They
Oh,
don't. They
just
don't
two
use
thumbs.
cursive. They don't use cursive anymore. And I was asking my godson, does he print? He goes, oh no. So, he goes, I don't even know how to read what you're writing.
I was looking back at some notes for my class yesterday on domestic violence because I made some updates after the last time I did it, and I couldn't read any of my notes. All right, why don't we go and get started? We don't have a lot of business today. Welcome, Rick. Glad you were able to get in the meeting. Welcome,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you for the link.
Stephanie, I'm so glad I reached out to you yesterday because I was going to get in my car and drive to Raleigh today. And it would have been my third day on the road this week. So this was a blessing to have everybody be remote and not feel guilty about being the only one remote. So let's get started with approval of minutes. Carrie was kind enough to send those minutes out electronically, just as she always does. Any additions or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, is someone willing to make a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second? Don't everybody speak at once?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Sorry, I
please
was
say
trying,
aye.
it wasn't working.
It's okay, thanks. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, say no. All right, updates, Stephanie Smith.
Yeah, so we have a vacancy in District 43, which is the old District 30, and it's the district that has 7 counties, Cherokee and others. So that the mediator has been there, is retiring, and the chief is new, and she asked us to help with the interviews. So Carrie was kind enough to go out there the other day and help with interviews, and we hope to have a new mediator in that position pretty soon. So we've been happy to report that the mass exodus of mediators has kind of stopped. So knock on wood, things are kind of holding steady, except for this, which was a retirement that was coming, and we're happy to celebrate her retirement. On the 6th of March, we're having in-service training. So this is one of our annual training events, but it's the one that is we don't bring in a national trainer. It's usually just a day. We'll hold this one remotely. And some of the topics we're going to cover are, we're going to have, actually, we've asked Sarah DePasquale to come in, or to appear online and talk a little bit about child welfare laws, and mediators sometimes have questions about when to report and different ethical issues. So I'm going to be collecting some of those from the mediators in advance and sending them to her. And she and I are going to talk about what laws would be helpful for her to cover. I'll also hopefully go over the new uniform rules. I'll talk about permanency planning mediation and the new uniform rules about that, which we actually are making. I feel like there's some movement finally with permanency mediation. So I went to Durham before Christmas and gave a presentation to their permanency design team, or I can't remember what it's called, but there were like 20 people in the room. And that has produced at least, it had produced a lot of interest. And one of the judges has referred a case that we'll be mediating remotely next week. And I have one of my contractors and one custody mediator who will be taking that. But the custody mediator has been trained in permanency mediation. And I have another custody mediators will be watching and observing, so trying to broaden the people that we'll be using for some of these. And hopefully we'll also talk at training about domestic violence, enterprise justice. I do have a mediator who I have asked if she could kind of research the feasibility of looking in Odyssey to track cases that did not reach an agreement in mediation but did not go on to court, just to see the feasibility of being able to do that in enterprise justice as opposed to what we had before, which was nothing. So she has put together a spreadsheet, and she's been doing that for the last 6 months at least. And I hope that she's going to be able to share some of that, because the information is really interesting, and I want to try to see if I can gin up some other interest in mediators to do that for themselves, so that when their chiefs notice a drop in signed parenting agreements, they could also point out some other information that can't be easily collected by our office. And we'll be talking about confidentiality related to emails, forms, enterprise justice. And also a couple of mediators have contacted me recently because their clients have recorded the sessions on their phone. Not that it could go anywhere beyond them, but I mean, I could go to other people, but it's kind of a trend. So the one party will then play the recording to the other party when they're upset about something. No, you said it this way. So, we can't really stop people from doing that. We can remind them multiple times that that's not going to help not admissible in court. But I think it'd be helpful for all of the media to talk about that. So that's going to be the training. And otherwise, I think things are pretty much holding status quo. I think we were holding our breath earlier this week, wondering what might happen to access and visitation with federal grants and all of that, but can breathe a little bit now. So I'll let Demaka talk about that later, but yeah, those are the updates.
Thank you, Stephanie. Any questions for Stephanie? Stephanie, vacancies are the name of the game this day. I mean, the changes. Chiefs class last week had 14 new Chief District Court judges.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, well, that's a good reminder to, we'll let our mediators know. We've helped them sometimes talk to their new chiefs. I mean, usually the chief is just overwhelmed and doesn't have time. But in this case, this judge had to deal with this hiring right away. And so we got to introduce ourselves in the program and answer a lot of questions. So that was, it had its benefits.
Right. Well, thank you very much. All right. Next agenda item is our modification to uniform rules. Carrie sent out the both a clean version and a track change version. And so at this point, I'd like to open the floor for any discussion, including anything, Stephanie or Carrie, that you would like to add.
Yeah, I changed some of the grammar in the goals. I just streamlined it a little bit. It's different than what you see up there. I don't know if you can even see that. Carrie has the track change version next to the clean version. If you're and you're able to make that larger, right, Carrie? Not you, but individuals can make that larger.
Yeah, I think on WebEx there's a way to increase your view.
Oh yeah,
There's
so
a percent number right at the top of the shared screen.
right. You also have hard copies of these. But so anyway, I just streamlined the language in number 1. If you don't mind, I could just go through them real quickly. There's a couple that we ask you all about.
Sure, please.
Okay, so then on 602, we combined continuing education and professional development into that bullet. And we took out site visits because we no longer do them. That was under a different leadership where we were going out and doing site visits. And now we've included that option under support so that if a chief would like for us to come out and evaluate the program, help them with interviews, we offer all of this. But we removed that as a bullet point. So you'll see that listed under support in 6.03. And just stop me if you've got any questions as I go through these. It's section number 7.
Stephanie, I think Judge Walczyk had a point about 6.04.
Okay.
It says now, the way I'm reading it on my 604 is professional development, and it says mediators are expected to participate in at least one of these events per year. That's how it starts. And I don't know what events we're talking about. It may refer to a previous section, but it doesn't say that.
On the clean version, does it say, what does it say? Mediators will participate in the annual training events provided. No. Are you reading from the clean version or the tracked version?
The tracked version,
Okay.
let me go pull the clean version and see if that's different, but it's easier for me to look at a tracked version.
Yeah, we wanted you to see the original, but we merged some things into 602, and I think it's a little clearer there.
I gotta open, trying to find it from Carrie. Okay, here it is. Let's see, clean version says 604.
And go to 6.02.
Okay, so it's actually different. It's completely different because the 604 in the clean version says mediator ethics, and then it says see standards of practice. That's not even in the tracked version. So,
Right. We merged the training thing from 604, the tracked version, into the clean version. So the clean version is really,
It's a little bit different. Okay.
those sections are different. So we're including in the continuing education that mediators will participate in the animal training events that we are providing. And we wanted to make it clear because in the past, mediators we had nothing to point to. Mediators would not show up for multiple trainings. And so that's why we say at minimum, every 2 years, a mediator needs to have completed 16 hours of annual training, including a component on ethics.
Does this mean that only AOC trainings count towards their continuing education? They can't go outside AOC?
They could, but it wouldn't substitute for this.
Okay.
So, I mean, we would be the ones who would decide, yeah, that's approved by us. You can go there instead of coming here. We can't pay for that though.
Right,
So-
right. Okay.
And I think currently we have 2 trainings per year, but we haven't always been able to have 2 trainings per year. So I think we're hesitant to say they'll attend the spring and fall training because that might not always be the case.
So we wrote annual training events.
Yeah.
And then the other things that we provide that we really encourage people to attend, and that they have opportunities to work together if they would like to, and that their chief agrees, and that we agree that they can certainly do that. Yeah, and then I already talked about support in 6.03, and then referral to mediation. So the bottom of the last sentence, the order of referral shall advise the parties that a show cause order may be issued, or sanctions imposed. And then you see some of our chatter on the side, should it be shall or may? We don't know that all the referrals actually include that language. We also think it was maybe a mistake that the waiver form was included under that, where it says see the waiver form. Like, why would the waiver form be there? We think it's the ordered calendar form that was meant to go there. And we wanted y'all's opinion on that. Because we have the waiver form later on under waiver of mediation. And we think that maybe this was a mistake, and what they might have meant, or we all might have meant, was see the ordered calendar form.
Unless you were just saying that they could, unless it was waived, the show cause wouldn't be issued if they requested a waiver. Maybe there was another sentence in there.
Yeah.
Now, the order to calendar, if that is not a problem, if that's not used locally in every district, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot of those are local forms.
Okay.
Well, maybe we just don't need that see the waiver form at all, since it's right in the very next section. Any thoughts on shall or may?
I don't think we do it anymore in Wake, so it might still say it in our order to attend, but we have never done show causes because people weren't getting served. So, there was this issue of we were doing orders to show cause and bad things were happening. So we just don't do it. We don't do an order to show cause. So I would say may, but.
Yeah.
We don't do them in union either, so.
Yeah, okay. We can, if everybody agrees, we can change that to may.
Yes.
Then under orientation, and I meant to say that a lot of the rule change, we took a look at all of this because of the agreement that fees for drug testing could be included. So that's what kind of prompted us looking at the whole uniform rules. And then additionally, the fact that we sometimes hold orientations and mediations remotely, we try to incorporate into the new rules. So under orientation, one of the important things to us is the first part where it says prior to separate from mediation and orientation shall be held. We know that for some mediators are having trouble getting parties to return intake sheets and to attend orientations. And so sometimes they do have to do the orientation right before the mediation, but we want to make it clear, judges looking at this, that, you know, a separate orientation is still really an important part of mediation, because sometimes that's been problematic. And then the other thing is that at the very end, we included, you know, whether orientations are held in person, live, or video conferencing, or via self-directed option is a decision each chief district court judge will make for his or her program. And you'll see that again under attendance at mediation sessions or location. So that's the change for orientation. And then attendance at sessions, I'm not sure what we changed, but parties attend. And then down under location, again, the addition was, you know, whether the mediation sessions are held in person, et cetera, is the chief's decision. This will help the mediators who sometimes, you know, when we go over this, we want them to understand that they may have a strong opinion about it. They need to run that by their chief. I
Quick
think-
question, Stephanie.
Yeah, I think most are aware of that, but yeah.
The paragraph that says shall attend no more than 3 sessions. Any issue with occasions of 4 or 5 sessions, really, in the end, or?
No, I mean, the last sentence, you know, that they can be extended by the agreement of the parties and with the permission of the chief.
Gotcha. Okay.
I think it's also meant, you know, it helps newer mediators who might, I remember in the beginning, I ended up doing way too many mediations. So it helps to have something to point to and say, you know, this is all we can do. But yeah, no, I've definitely done more when it was helpful to the parties. Okay, and then let's see. Then under location also, the last sentence or the last couple of sentences, we were trying to make clear that telephone mediation is, you know, is not a very good idea. It's prohibited unless the parties don't have the ability to do anything else. And if that's the case, then both parties need to be on the telephone. We had an issue before where that was not happening and it just created kind of an unbalanced setting. So if you can only do a telephone mediation, then both parties really need to be on the phone. Then parenting plans. This is where we added the information about drug testing cost. As you see, Carrie's highlighted it there. I had a question about whether that's the best place for it, and also should we add, I was thinking of adding a sentence that this is the only time in a parenting agreement that cost can be included, just to make it crystal clear, and I wanted to know y'all's opinion on that. So those two things, like, is that the best place? Should we have a separate bullet for it? Should I add an extra sentence?
I don't really see where else you would put it. And I agree to a sentence to limit. I think I've expressed my opinion in the past about I don't want to really get into finances or especially things relating to child support. So if you limit it to just those, I'm fine with that. I think I'm fine with the language as it is too. What I was going to bring up was in the second paragraph under that about signing agreements. And I feel like we should say something about whether you can electronically sign. I mean, what they do here now is they mail it out to the people sign it, they mail it back, and sometimes one party signs it and sometimes they don't. I don't know if we have any mechanism or if we just want to say that it's okay to electronically sign or not.
Carrie, do you remember anything from leadership here about that? To just,
Sorry, say that again, Steph?
did we get any guidance from leadership here about electronic signatures? I know it was talked about quite a bit years ago.
At this point, I don't think there's a way to do it through enterprise justice. But there, you know, people have their own programs that they may be able to sign a document with, but nothing provided by the
Right.
judicial branch.
But there's no prohibition against it. Like people could electronically sign the agreement and email it back to the mediator, right?
I think right now, whenever we've gotten those questions, we've always taught the mediators to talk to their judge about it. 'Cause
Well,
we
we could put
did,
that in here.
we did just get a question like they're scanning, they're taking pictures of a signature page and sending it. And we talked about this, I think 2 meetings ago, and I know Judge Cabe was concerned about electronic signatures, that it's easier to maybe coerce or fabricate an e-signature versus having something notarized. We did talk about that 2 meetings ago.
Well, and that's why I was just suggesting we spell it out. I mean, if we're gonna allow it, maybe we wanna say it has to be it could be digitally signed. If we're not gonna allow it, we might wanna say that. I mean,
Mhm.
everybody's signing. I mean, with Odyssey now you see pictures of things that, that are crumpled up and sideways. We get a lot of stuff like that in the system. So if attorneys can do it, I don't know why, litigants can't do it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, maybe like with the format for mediation orientation, we tell people to talk to their chiefs about it. About what kind of signature is going to be available to parties in that program. Anybody?
I like the sound of that. Something, like the method of signature shall be determined locally by each chief, with the mediation program.
Judge Walther? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's fine with me. If we're putting something in the rules, I just thought we should say, I mean, if I get something digitally signed, I'm not the chief, but if I get something digitally signed, I mean, I don't know how you deny it now, if it's got the paperwork saying it was digitally signed. I don't know how we say no to that, but I get it if you have /s/ and, I mean, then is it notarized? I mean, I guess we just have to, I just wanted some clarity on what we're going to accept, because I think part of the problem with our parenting plans is it takes forever when you mail it and someone has to take it to a notary and mail it back. We're getting into court and we're on for trial and we're just waiting for these signatures to come back. And so I'm just wondering if we want to say something about letting the mediators do digital signatures or not. And if you guys want to say the chief decides, then that's fine. We'll just get our chief to say what we want and wake. That would work.
Yeah, I'm really counting on you to tell us.
Is it an option to have the signature pad in the office and the parties have to come into the office to sign that way?
Mm.
You mean, is that an option, you said?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's the way it used to be done, but, so many people are farther away from the courthouse.
In Durham, we have people come, sign it in person, and we give them several days, 4 or 5 days to choose from, any hour, no appointment needed, because they just sign in front of the clerk who sits at the reception desk. But if someone does live far away or says it's difficult for them to come in person, then we've emailed them the PDF with a little notary box under their signature line. So we don't have to wait for them to get it in the mail. We just email the PDF. They print it out, sign it in front of a notary and mail it back. So that's the only situation. But I would say 90% of our people still just choose to swing by the courthouse because it's not like they have to make an appointment and get there at an exact time. So that's how we do it. And then we scan it in. As soon as we've got both signatures, we use our little scanner to get uploaded into Odyssey.
I think one of y'all pointed out to us that statutorily, the client's signature isn't really even required. It's good idea because it helps us know that both people are really on board with whatever we've sent out or any changes that have been made. But I was like, oh, I didn't even think of that. Well, we could list all the options and then again say that it's up to each district. That would at least make it clear that digital signatures are acceptable as far as we're concerned. and then just leave it up to each district.
I think that's a good idea.
All right, then the next one is 1206.
Wait, Steph, can we just confirm that the sentence for drug testing is what we want and nothing else added?
Well, I think Judge Walzig was saying, like, I was suggesting another sentence saying that this is the only place in a parenting agreement where cost will be allowed to be included.
Okay.
Do other people think that would be helpful to include in the uniform rules? I don't see how it can hurt, but
I do, and maybe I wonder if the word cost could work, or where maybe saying where a financial matter may be addressed, or as
Finan-
opposed to just a cost.
Cheryl, you got any ideas?
No, I don't know. What do you think, Judge Walsick? I mean, I just assume that I mean, this is the only place where a cost is mentioned, so that's the way I would interpret it. Maybe something along the line of no other cost or financial issues shall be addressed in a parenting plan, something like that.
If we just said in one sentence that, you know, the parenting plan cannot include provisions regarding financial matters except,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Yeah.
have this stuff.
Right.
I like that. Okay. Great, thank you. Termination of mediation. I was surprised at this, and I thought, well, the thing that's missing is a clarification that the mediator can submit this form based on their assessment that it's inappropriate for mediation after the requirements have been met. Because we don't have the ability to say a case is inappropriate. And I think, you know, either party may move to the mediation proceedings dismissed. Okay, we do, yeah, so that's what we changed in the beginning. After the parties have attended at least the orientation of one mediation session, either both of the parties may decide not to continue with the process, and the mediator, then in the middle of the second paragraph, further, if the mediator determines that the case is not suitable for mediation due to domestic violence, a power imbalance between the parties, etc., the mediator may report to the court that the case was not resolved. I would like to clarify in there that it's after the requirements have been met, just like in that first paragraph. So you might have a situation where they've attended orientation, they've come to mediation, the parties may want to return for a second session, but the mediator has determined that there's something here that's really not, it's going to be a rare situation, but there's something where it should not attend, they should not be in mediation. And so then the mediator would fill out the order to calendar. And so I think what that section is getting at is the mediator's ability to, you know, control the session.
And Steph, you were also trying to emphasize that this would have to be after they've mediated, after they've met that obligation, right?
Right, that's what yeah.
So are you saying that prohibits, and we don't do this anymore, but several years ago, we were sort of waiving mediation for really bad domestic violence cases. The judge was on their own doing it at the request of the mediators. And we stopped doing that, I think, because of some of this language, but I don't know what the rules are intended to be, but if you have a mediator who is aware that there's a DVPO in place because one party tried to kill the other party, I personally don't have a problem with that mediator saying, I am not going to have them sit in the same room and mediate this case. And what used to happen is they would give a motion to waive to the judge, and the judge would review the DVPO. And now I know we're changing from sort of opt out to or opt in or whatever, and we've done some different stuff in Durham, but I don't want to preclude a judge or a mediator from saying, even before the mediation begins, that this is not appropriate for mediation. But I recognize you don't want that to be done on a regular basis, but we get some really bad domestic violence cases where the parties are having no contact whatsoever. And I don't want to force them into mediation. And sometimes they don't request a waiver on their own.
Hey, I'm all for it. I've been jumping up and down for like 25,000 years, just wanting that exact same thing, and I haven't gotten it, which is why I created the DV screening protocol, which is stuck. You all tell me, hey, can we now do that? Can mediators say, hey, this is inappropriate for mediation, here's the order to calendar? That would be great. That'd be music to my ears. My understanding was we can always ask the judge to waive, and then the judge has the power to waive the case. But the mediator generally, I mean, y'all know what I'm.
Well, if you're saying that the judge can do it, which is how we were doing it, the mediator was saying, hey, I have a concern about this. And then the judge was reviewing the case and making a decision. But I don't want this rule to say is that they have to go through mediation and sit together in the same room for a full session before somebody can ask a judge to take it out. So if that's not what we're saying, if we're just saying that a mediator can't do it on their own until they finish the process, but they can request that a judge do it, I'm okay with that too. I don't want to force people to sit in the same room with, in certain circumstances, I think it's inappropriate. And so the problem is you have victims of domestic violence who don't ask for waiver because whatever, a million reasons. And so I don't want to tie anybody's hands to get that out of mediation if it's not appropriate.
So two things. One is we could either just completely rewrite that to say that if a mediator feels the case is inappropriate for mediation due to all these things, that he or she will talk to the judge or present an order to calendar to the judge or something like that. And then you turn the next page and there's a whole like bunch of rules about domestic violence. But somebody might feel like, well, we don't have that protocol here yet. And then the termination of mediation would give them another option. I mean, we could write it that if the mediator feels it's inappropriate, they could present the order to calendar to their chief and or their judge and ask for them to waive mediation.
Well, and I think if you say something to the effect of, if a mediator ever feels like they're in an unsafe situation or the parties are in an unsafe situation or it's, those kinds, I mean, it's a high standard, but if we're there, then I personally don't have a problem saying a mediator can calendar it. But I mean, that's up to you guys. The way we've always done it is the judge makes the final decision, but the mediator would bring it to the judge and then the assigned judge would make a decision.
I have a question. I'm not muted, right? You can hear me?
We can hear you.
Good. In this case, under 1206, I think part of the concern is that the opening paragraph says parties have to attend at least the orientation one mediation session. Could it be cured by saying in the second paragraph, either party at any time may move or may move at any time? So it says it allows them, it's a motion, so it's presumed that they'll go through the paces, but at any time, even before the first mediation session, they may file a motion. Would that cure it?
I think that really helps a lot because there's like two different things going on in this section. One is just they don't agree.
And they can already make a motion to waive. That's permitted already. But I thought this paragraph was more, you're already in mediation and the mediator wants to terminate it. That's what I thought this section was for. I think a party can always request a waiver of mediation. I don't know what it means to say have the mediation proceedings dismissed, but I thought this was more to let the mediator stop it at an early stage if it was not safe. But
well, yeah, I don't think we still have the section on waiver anymore. So is that right?
Paragraph 8 says waiver of mediation on its own motion or that of either party. The chief judge may waive mediation for good cause. That's under if there's domestic violence or on its own motion or that of either party, the court may waive the setting of a contested custody or visitation matter for mediation upon findings of good cause. That's when people used to live far away and we did it. Now we don't, we have Zoom, but so section 8, it talks about waiver.
Yeah.
And I just noticed with you reading that, Judge Welzig, that it says the chief, and is it always the chief?
Well, the second paragraph says on its own motion or that of either party, the court may waive.
Okay.
But the first part does say sufficient evidence of DV. It has to be the chief, and then the good cause. I mean, that's actually sort of inconsistent because to me, DV would be good cause. So,
Mhm.
so does it have to be the chief or can the court do it? I don't think it should be the chief because the chief's not going to hear every single, we got so many cases. It's going to be the assigned judges really that are going to be doing it.
Mhm.
Okay, so can we change that?
Yeah.
The court?
Was that meant to have something to do with the DV statewide rollout thing, where is the chief being required to decide what things are eligible for to be screened out? Maybe that's what that was for. I don't know.
No, I think that was, I don't know how that was left over from the way the uniform rules were written originally.
I don't have the original one, but it seems to me like it should just say on its own motion or that of either party, the court could waive for good cause and then list all those things, not just DV, but all the things about that are down at the bottom, more than 50 miles, whatever.
Right.
But if there's some rule that requires the chief to do it somewhere else, I'm not aware of it. So I don't want to just act something without thinking about it.
Cheryl, I think you were not shaking your head no, right?
No, actually, I was trying to remember and I couldn't remember, so I was gonna grab the statute actually. But I just don't remember.
Yeah, I know that, that thing about 50 miles was changed from shall to may because, so that was a while ago. And since we have the waiver there, this termination section really is, the first part is either or both parties may decide not to continue. They don't need any form, they just decide not to continue. So then that whole second section really is all about whether the mediator thinks the case is inappropriate for mediation. Either party, well, no, it's not either party there. I don't know. I mean, maybe we should move some of the, I don't know what it means either. May move to have the mediation proceedings dismissed. What does that mean? But what happens now is, and maybe we should have this, is when a mediator recuses themselves due to familiarity with the party or that party's request, sometimes the party will call me and say, I want a different mediator. We tried with this mediator. I don't like him or her. I'd like a different mediator. And we find another mediator so this person can try again. Maybe Carrie and I can just rework this whole section here. Although I'd still like to know if the mediator under the waiver can recommend a waiver to the court. Just trying to unpack, it's got a lot of different things in there. One is the first sentence really seems to be, this dismissing the proceedings is not really going to happen due to familiarity. So it would be like a recusal. I don't know if we have that somewhere else. And
That's
then,
in the standard, Stephanie.
okay, so we could point to that.
Mhm.
But this isn't really termination of mediation. So maybe it just needs to be struck and maybe if there's a place and if it's appropriate for a mediator to request or suggest a waiver, that could be put under waiver. I don't know what y'all are thinking. It's so weird to talk on WebEx. Is anybody there? I don't know what to do, but I'll just keep going, then we can come back to that one. So 1208, other participants. Yeah, that's at the discretion of the mediator with the consent of all the parties. And that's only after the initial session, so that the mediator can determine if that's actually going to be beneficial. But sometimes it's rare, but sometimes the parties, it's oftentimes one party wants somebody else involved in the mediation session. It's rare that both do. But that's why that would only happen after the initial session so that the mediator can get everybody's, can get a sense of whether that's going to be beneficial and that everybody agrees to that. So that, I think, is the last thing that's added or amended, because then you've got the DV screening protocol, and then we put in at the very end all of the new permanency mediation uniform rules.
So Stephanie, do you want to like circulate one more version by email or something with all the final changes?
Sure. And the outstanding question, which I can just write up and see what y'all think about it, but I don't know. You got to tell me, is like something that would say the mediator under waiver, if the mediator is assessed that this case is inappropriate, they would submit a order to calendar or something, waiver form to the court.
I mean, unless there's something in the statute that prohibits that, I don't, that's what we do anyway. So I think most people are probably doing that anyway. So I don't think we're changing much, but
Right.
I see how what you're saying. We have two separate sections. We have the waiver section, which is before you start, and then we have the termination of mediation section. And maybe we're just doing too much in the termination, because once you've had a mediation session and an orientation, you can stop anytime you want. You just reach an impasse, right? You just say, we don't agree, we can't agree, we're done. But that second paragraph that's in the 1206 termination maybe is really more suitable to move up to the waiver section, to say that either parties can request it and ask for it, or if a mediator feels like they're unsafe or whatever, they can ask for it. Something to that effect.
Yeah, okay, I'll play with that and send that out to y'all to.
And I think it would be helpful, like we do have some mediators in districts that say, you know, this case is inappropriate, and they they don't ask for a waiver to be filled out. They just have it on their form to move forward and mark it as inappropriate. So are we saying that that all the mediators, if they feel like a case is inappropriate, would need to ask for a waiver?
Well, Carrie, are you saying that they're, it sounds like they have the ability to waive the case is not coming to mediation, the mediator has determined that it's not appropriate, they fill out a local form that says it's not appropriate. So those are local rules usually. I think Judge Corpening's district has one like that, where the mediator can waive a case, you know, so locally they may have done that. So for the uniform rules though, I think we would need to say that, you know, that they would have to present something to the courts.
Well, Stephanie, the motion that I'm talking about is the AOC Form 632, which is a motion in order to waive custody mediation. And it says there's a motion section at the top, which says this is why we're asking for it to be waived. And it has the 50-mile thing. It has a hardship. It has, we're doing private mediation. The party suffers from alcoholism, abuses drug. And it's got those things that are listed in that termination section that you have in the rules. And then on the back, there's an order for the judge to sign saying that we found good cause to waive it. So this form is not set up to let a mediator fill it out because it says the undersigned party is moving for a waiver. So, I mean, this form wouldn't work for the mediator, but it is a uniform form. It's not a, this is the one that we used to use. And we would just, because the rule says the court on his own motion can do it. And we would use this AOC form, and then the court would fill out the order part on page 2. And we would just write DVPO in existence or whatever our reason was. And it was based on the mediator bringing a case to us and saying, you know, there was really no written document. They would just attach the DVPO and attach this form and give it to us. And then we would look over the DVPO and look at the file. And then we would decide if we wanted to sign the second portion of this order or not. So I know what you're saying. I don't think we're talking about a local form. We're talking about, it's not set up for mediators to use this form. So.
Right. Yeah, so some local districts have created their own form or made something in their local rules, or like, you know, Harry, when Michelle was the mediator in former District 11, she could just, any case that had DV, that she saw had a DVPO, the court automatically waived. So they just had their own kind of understanding. Some of them formalize it in their local rules. So I don't know what we should write there. Because we don't have an AOC form for that, but say something that the mediator will.
Yeah.
Well, I just don't think you use the term waiver. I mean, if you go back up to the waiver section and say either party can file a motion to waive or the court on its own motion can waive, my personal opinion is that language that's under the termination section about having mediation proceedings dismissed, because that's not really, we're not dismissing anything. If it just says that, you know, the mediator feels unsafe or those things are in existence, the mediator can bring it to their chief or their assigned judge or whatever. You know, and then just have the termination section talk about if the parties are halfway through it and they don't want to do it anymore, they don't have to.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't want to throw a wrench in anything, but I would be pretty uncomfortable with the rules saying anything that indicates that the mediator can waive mediation. I mean, I think the statute's pretty clear that that has to be the court.
Right.
But I did notice, I mean, there is a provision in the statute that talks about mediation being dismissed. So I think that's where we kind of got that language to start with. But it's, you know, it's limited to, you know, dismissed when there's evidence of mediator's bias or prejudice or something like that. But it says a party can move to have it dismissed. So that may be where it's coming from, but I don't think it's terribly helpful either.
I get those calls.
Yeah.
Uh,
I think you're right. Most of the time you're going to deal with that by assigning another mediator, but the statute actually, that's probably where we got the language.
So do you think some language under that saying that the mediator could bring this to the judge's attention for a waiver or something along those lines, like under that waiver section, like when those things arise and the mediator's aware of it before mediation, he or she could bring this to the judge's attention for consideration of a waiver?
Mm-hmm. I think it makes more sense to do that in the waiver section.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But that idea of the mediator could bring it to the judge's attention for consideration of a waiver?
Uh-huh. I mean, and right. I guess I'm just trying to think if it needs to say something different, if it's a situation where the mediator finds out during the course of mediating, but I still think that's, you know, they could still do the waiver at that point.
Yeah, and when it's when the people have fulfilled their obligations, they're done an orientation, now you're in a session and you decide to shut down that session. I think there's something somewhere about our being able to control the session. Like we can end
Right.
it,
Right.
we wouldn't need to fill out any forms.
Mm-mm. No. I wouldn't think so. Mm-mm.
Okay. That's just pretty much us controlling the session and not waiving a case.
Right. Right.
Well, I can play with some language and send it to you all to incorporation into that waiver section to see if it's going too far or not enough or,
And
Question, Stephanie.
yeah.
As a practical matter, if the parties decide they're not working well with a particular mediator or vice versa, are they generally go to another mediator? Is that the policy that we're going to find somebody else to work with you?
It's a great point because we've had some mediators tell us, oh, we refuse to do that. A lot of times mediators feel like they're setting a policy, but that's why I'd like to have it in here that, so that mediators understand that especially with Zoom now, we're very capable of finding another mediator. Now, the problem comes in when I just had this happen where it was at the end of the session. So everybody's fulfilled all their obligations. One of the parties calls me and is upset at something the mediator said. And she wants to try again, but with a different mediator. We have to get his approval to do that, the other parties, because they've fulfilled their obligations. Luckily, he was up with that and we got another mediator. If it happens before the mediation session, the party recognizes this person doesn't, then yeah, definitely that would be a recusal and we get another mediator. If it's after the session, then it really seems to be, it's going to have to be that the other party agrees to do this as well.
And the reason I'm asking is because the way I read this section, 1206 termination to me is termination, the mediation stops, but it doesn't make any kind of allowance or doesn't address any issue of continuing with a different mediator.
Yeah, so Carrie, you're saying that's in the standards? Well, the recusal is.
the recusal is, I don't, like Rick said, I don't think we talk about the options of having another mediator.
Right.
So
I don't think we'd be
And you
able.
may not want to open that, but it may be a box you don't want to open.
Yeah, it's really hard to if they've gone through that whole mediation, we can't force the other party to attend another one. That could just be endless. But yeah.
and I have a form from District 43 because we've been doing a lot of collecting of information before the mediator retires out there. But I was thinking it might be helpful to just show y'all like an example of this is the report by the custody mediator, and you see this goes in their case file. Mediation has been waived, but a few above number 11 says mediator determined the case inappropriate. So it is definitely happening in some districts where there's not a waiver filled out and it's the mediator moving it forward.
I know I filled something out like that in Wake County, not as a way to waive the case, but after the case was over, I did not want the judge to send it back to me because it was so inappropriate for mediation. Of course, I don't think anybody ever saw that form, but I would check that box because something had come up in mediation that made this really inappropriate to continue. And so I know a lot of mediators will do that. Doesn't mean it won't get sent back.
Yeah. But in this scenario, and I know another district, that's how they move the case forward without mediating it.
Right. So those are local arrangements. But in terms of uniform rules, no, it's a different story. Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess what we always say is go by the uniform rules first, right? And then the local rules have to comply with the statewide uniform rules.
We always say, talk to your chief.
Always.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're making their local rules are gonna have more detail. So if they have a local rule that says the mediator does X, Y, and Z and then moves the case along, then that's what they're doing. But the uniform rules. Different. So I'll play around with that language. Thank you.
Okay, well, so much for this being a quick meeting, right? Great discussion though. You know, I feel like we're really getting close. So, good work, everybody. Polly, welcome. Glad you're here. Update on Safe Babies Court.
Thanks so much, Judge Corpany. Good afternoon to everyone. I'm going to go ahead and give you the update. And if y'all have questions, just go ahead and interrupt me. There's a lot going on with Safe Babies Court and a lot of moving pieces. And sometimes it's easier just to answer them as they come up. But I'm going to start over with our first year sites, which were Yancey and Mitchell and New Hanover. Yancey and Mitchell are enrolling families that are 0 to 5 because that's what the data tells us. And New Hanover is doing 0 to 3. As of Wednesday of this date, I believe New Hanover has now 10 cases, and they've had 1 that has graduated through reunification. Yancey and Mitchell only have 2 cases, and those came in quite early. One thing we're noting about across the entire state is kids coming into care is going down pretty significantly, and it's not just in one area. It really is kind of a statewide phenomena. So we're watching that and what we need to do with Yancey and Mitchell since that caseload is fairly low. With both Yancey and Mitchell and New Hanover, we did our first 6-month CQI review because they began enrolling families in June of last year. And I think it really went well. I think Judge Corpany can speak to New Hanover at any time, of course. But there was a lot of really good in-depth discussion about process, what works well, what doesn't. Adjustments that people are kind of making as they go along, because everything is kind of a learning process since it's a pilot, but we got a lot of good feedback from both of those sites. With Durham and Brunswick, both of those sites have decided to go 0 to 5 because that's what the data shows. Brunswick will really be our first site that will have probably more cases that are without non-secure custody than with non-secure custody. We are looking with these next 2 sites, Durham and Brunswick. We're starting to enroll families as of basically now, but we do allow a look back period for cases that have not been adjudicated. And they had 4 cases that were basically in-home cases that hadn't been adjudicated and 3 in foster care. So we hope that all of those will enroll. With Durham, they had 3 cases that would come from that look back period. We are beginning the implementation process in Rutherford and McDowell next week. We'll be out there for court observations and meeting with all of our court partners. The whole implementation process takes about 4 to 5 months, so they should be enrolling families next June or July. I think one of the things that comes out of this that we don't talk about a lot is 2 parts of the Safe Babies Court is to have a site implementation team and an active community team. And the site implementation team meetings have been really interesting because it's probably the one time that we're pulling together all the court partners. You've got parent attorneys, you've got GALs, attorney advocates, DSS, judge. So process and procedures being discussed in that. So they're doing a lot of problem solving with it. And with the active community teams, that is all of our community providers. And that's been great because we're doing resource mapping for all of the sites we're in to look at what resources are available, what we need, problems with getting referrals in, wait lists, and all those kind of issues. And Judge Corpany, I wanted to know if you want to talk a little bit about the judicial status conferences. You tell the stories much better than I do, and I think that's been a lot of where our learning has been.
Sure. So, judicial status conferences are the favorite part of my job now. I do them once a month, and at the end of that afternoon, I'm like, well, can I do another one next week? But it gives me an opportunity to really cement a connection between myself and the parent or the parents, and gives me an opportunity to motivate, to cajole, to inspire, and then gives the parent an opportunity to really look forward to coming back and having things to talk to me about, because my coordinator is very intentional in talking to the parents about things that they'd like to discuss with me. And then I also get updates from her about things that I may need to discuss with the parents, even if it's something they may not want to talk with me about. I'm gonna share my screen. I actually didn't come prepared to do this, but because I can do it on the fly, I'm gonna.
And you're always so good on the fly, so we count on it.
So I'm hoping that y'all can see this room. Can you see it?
Yep.
All right, so this is our training room. We fold up the tables, chairs are set up in a circle. That's a toddler play or baby play thing in the floor. We've got the mat. But we've also done other things with the room. That's our banner, Polly. You see our banner that you got us for Safe Baby Courts. And I've got motivational leadership posters around the room centered around 3 words: imagine, believe, and lead. I ask the parents to imagine that their life can be better. Imagine that they can have their children back in their home, that they can actually live happily ever after. I ask them to believe in their personal power to make that happen. And then I ask them to take a leadership role in their own life and in the lives of their children. And I've got a poster with imagine, one with believe, and then I've got some leadership tiles that are on the wall. We've got toy boxes, we've got bookcase, we've got a fish. The fish is made out of wood and was made at a local nonprofit, Kids Making It. It was made by a teenager in an after-school at-risk program, which is just phenomenal. That teenager happened to go on to go to NC State University, earned a degree in architecture, and is now an apprentice at one of our large architecture firms here in Wilmington. And the nonprofit gave that to us and came and hung it. And the little plaque that's hanging underneath it that you're not going to be able to read says "Just keep swimming," which is totally awesome. And we did a graduation ceremony for our first graduate, who is awesome. We decorated, we had a party, and there's our first graduate and her child. So just really exciting times for us. I'm trying to get back to large screen. That's not going to happen. All right, here we go. All right. So I hope that gives you the flavor, but let me just share with you. Have I shared with this group my first status conference? I don't know if I did or not. So my first enrollee was in jail. Her child was 6 months old at the time that she enrolled, and she had been in jail for 4 months. So the only time that she had held her baby in 4 months was when she came to court with me for her court hearings. And she enrolled, and so we brought her from the jail for her first status conference, which was last August. I walked into the room. We had the circle set up. I had given a lot of thought to everything except where I was going to sit. And I walked in the room and realized that I hadn't given any thought to that. And she was sitting on the far side of the circle from me, and she was trembling. She was so anxious. And so I walked up to her and offered my hand to shake her hand and said, "Good afternoon. It's great to see you." Called her by name and then asked if I could sit beside her. And she looked up at me and said, "Oh, would you please?" And I said, "Of course I will." And I sat down beside her and we chatted for just a second. And then her mom brought her baby in, who's just an adorable little boy. And her mom handed her a baby, and she's streaming tears because she knows that she's going to get to hold him for a while. And she whispered and she lifted him up in front of her, "I hope he remembers me." And that little boy lit up. His eyes lit up. He smiled, this beautiful smile. And I reached over and touched her arm and said, "He remembers you." And then off we went on 20 minutes of most wonderful conversation. she was all over the place. Well, you know, I said, where are you going to live? Where are you going to get your recovery? We talked about those two things. And she said, well, I'm going to look for a job here and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. I said, can we talk about, you know, the two biggest things in your life right now, where you're going to live and where you're going to work your recovery? And then when I see you again in a month, let's talk about the other things. And I have a old Boy Scout exercise I used to do about taking care of the big rocks in your life first. As you try to put things in a jar, if you don't start with the big rocks, then you'll never get the big rocks in. So we talked about the big rocks, and then she, the deputies let her stay and have tummy time with her son, which was just fabulous. 2 weeks later, she got out of jail. Within 24 hours of her release from jail, she had completed one assessment. She had 2 other assessments scheduled, and she had made an application to a residential facility where she could live with her child. Within 24 hours of release, she was admitted to that facility. She's been living with her baby now for a couple of months, maybe 3 months. She had a month where she had to live there without him to make sure that she was going to be compliant with the rules, and then he was able to move in with her. And then she's since graduated to what they call an independent living apartment within their complex. And she's doing great. And I look forward to seeing her every month. But to see that kind of motivation for somebody who's just come out of jail, who's been battling the demons of opioid use disorder, and to be 100% motivated, that's just not what we typically see in DSS world. Usually we're having to pull and tug and push and, you know, do all kinds of other things to try to get people to get busy, and she has been all over it. So favorite part of my world right now. And yeah, we did have a graduate 2 weeks ago, and we are, I think, about to have another one, and then in pretty short order, another one. And so our first graduate, 6 months post adjudication, post enrollment, 6 months, full custody restored. So exciting times.
And I just want to point out, because some of y'all might not be as familiar with the judicial status conferences. These are not court hearings. There's no testimony. There's no recording. It really is a time for the judge and the respondent to have a conversation, to lift up that parent's voice in the progress, and for that relationship to build. Everything we've looked at, research shows that if whomever's in front of that judge feels like they're heard, feels like they're understood, they're going to do much better in whatever they're trying to achieve. So that's a lot of the reasons that it's in a very informal setting. It's been really interesting with our judges because they're having to think through, where do I want to hold it? Do I want to wear my robe? Do I not want to wear the robe? I know I'm coming off the bench. What room? Those kind of things. So that's been a really fun part of this process. And I think it's probably the biggest shift for people that are involved in the court, that we're going to do this very differently. So that's kind of where we are with Safe Babies Court. Do y'all have any questions?
Polly, I don't have a question, but Johnston County's interested.
Okay, funding. You know, it's always our first question. But certainly, yeah, we can reach out to them and see where we are.
Judge Joy Jones.
Okay.
They actually, my Jamie went with me Wednesday, my juvenile court coordinator, and they actually did a luncheon for us so we could talk to them about Safe Baby Court.
Oh, wow.
So they're definitely interested. And Maria Marta Conrad, who was a lawyer, DSS lawyer here when we were first starting the process, is the DSS lawyer in Johnston County, and she's on fire about it.
I bet she is. Well, thank you for the promotion. We appreciate it, Judge Courtney.
All right, any questions for Polly or any questions for me about it? I'll try to answer questions too. Anybody? All right. Thanks, Polly. Thanks for joining us. Damaka, glad to hear from you about access and visitation.
Thank you, Judge Corpening. Good afternoon, everyone. We have a few updates from the Access and Visitation Program. October 1 began a new grant cycle for the program. A&V coordinators continue to provide counseling, parenting, information about the court process, as well as make referrals to community services to non-custodial parents and program participants. In October 2023, the number of A&V coordinators was reduced to 5, with 4 of the positions being 40-hour positions. The Cumberland Southeast region position is currently at 30 hours. Each coordinator covers a specific region, providing in-person services at their duty station and remote services to counties within their region. The Buncombe County position became vacant in August. Efforts to fill the vacancy have been challenging, given the hurricane back in the fall and new judicial leadership. They have a new chief district court judge. And Stephanie mentioned at the beginning of the meeting concerns about the federal grants. So this week, leadership made the decision to postpone recruitment efforts for that vacancy until we can evaluate how the recent administration changes in the federal government might impact federal grants, which this program is funded by federal grant. Hopefully, we can continue the recruitment efforts for that position because it's a great program. The 23-24 fiscal year, there's a combined total where A&V coordinators provided services to over 6,000 clients, and they provided over 8,000 services across the state. So we definitely don't want to lose any position or even lose the program. I will be presenting on the Access and Visitation Program at the North Carolina Association for Court Management Conference in March, along with Norma Boyd, who is the Northeast A&V coordinator. The session will provide information to court management staff about the program and the ability for court AV coordinators to provide remote services in those counties where there is no stationary coordinator. And finally, the A&V coordinator in 4 of the 5 counties continue to partner with custody mediators to provide parent education in conjunction with the custody mediation orientation. Mecklenburg, which is the southern region, they contract with outside provider to provide that parent education. So it is something that is offered in each county where we have an access and visitation coordinator. These are the updates for the Access and Visitation Program, and I am happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Tamaka. Any questions? All right, then anything else for the good of the order today? All right, thanks everybody for joining us. Hope you enjoy your weekend. Cheryl, stay well. Good to see everybody today.
Bye.
Thank you.